Hello, today the book we're going to talk about is Harper Lee's timeless classic, To Kill a Mockingbird.
A truly foundational piece of American literature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for this deep dive, our mission really is to explore the profound insights this novel offers. We're talking justice, prejudice, the human spirit, all of it.
Right. We'll get into the author, Harper Lee, her world, the historical backdrop, key events, symbols, the whole package.
Exactly. It's a story so many people know or think they know, but there's always more to uncover. So let's unpack its most important lessons.
Sounds good. And, it's fascinating when you really start digging into Kill a Mockingbird, just how much of Harper Lee's own world sort of bleeds into Maycomb.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, she was born in 1926, grew up in Monroeville, Alabama. And Monroeville, that was pretty much the blueprint for Maycomb.
Ah, okay. So real-life inspiration.
Directly. Lee herself said, it wasn't strictly an autobiography, but it was, quote, truthful about what she knew. That authenticity really comes through.
That deep connection definitely shows. What parts of her background do you think really shaped the narrative most? I know she studied law for a bit, right? That seems significant.
Oh, absolutely. She was at the University of Alabama studying law from 45 to 49. And what's really remarkable is that even back then, she was writing about racial injustice.
Wow, in the 40s,
Yeah.
on a Southern campus.
Exactly. A very rare, very brave topic for campus publications at the time. So she had this legal framework in her mind, plus her lived experience in the South. It's a powerful combination.
Definitely gives her a unique perspective.
For sure. Then she moves to New York City in 1950, gets a job with an airline, British Overseas Airways Corporation. But her writing, it seems, was always pulling her back home.
Still focused on Monroeville.
Yeah, writing short stories, essays, often about the people she knew there. It clearly wasn't just a hobby.
So like a real driving force. And I heard it took a huge leap of faith for her to actually commit to the novel full-time.
It really did. It wasn't until 1957 that she quit her job. Her friends actually supported her financially while she wrote To Kill a Mockingbird.
That's amazing. Shows how much they believed in her.
It does, and it took her 2.5 years. Intense years. Apparently, she almost threw the manuscript out the window at one point.
No way. Seriously.
Yeah, total frustration. It just makes you pause, right? Thinking how close we came to not having this book at all. But thankfully, she persisted, and it was published July 11th, 1960.
Incredible. And the parallels between her life and the book, they're almost uncanny. Her father, Amasa Coleman Lee, he was a lawyer, just like Atticus Finch.
Right. And there's that chilling real-life story. He defended 2 black men accused of murder back in 1919.
Oh, wow. How did that turn out?
Tragically, both were convicted. One was hanged, the other mutilated. And after that case, her father reportedly never took another criminal case. Just stopped.
That's heavy. You can see the seeds of Atticus's character, but also the weight of that history.
Exactly. And her older brother, Edwin. He was the model for Jem. Their family even had a black housekeeper, much like Calpurnia.
So many direct links.
And Dill is maybe one of the most famous connections. He was inspired by her childhood friend, Truman Capote.
The writer Truman Capote.
The very same. He used to spend summers with his aunt next door to the Lees. They were apparently quite the pair, vivid imaginations, loved reading.
That makes perfect sense for Dill's character. And the Radley house. The spooky place.
Also based on reality. There was a house in Monroeville where a son was supposedly kept inside by his father for like 24 years because of some legal trouble. He died in the house in 1952.
Good grief. So these aren't just vague inspirations. They're like direct echoes of the people and places she knew.
Absolutely. It gives the fiction this incredible layer of authenticity, this feeling of lived reality.
Okay, so we've seen how Lee's world shaped the book. Let's step into Maycomb itself now, this tired old town, as she calls it.
Right. The setting is crucial. It's set over 3 years, 1933 to 1935, right in the middle of the Great Depression. Maycomb, Alabama fictional, yes, but deeply rooted in that Southern reality.
And isolated, right? That seems important.
Very. Lee emphasizes its isolation. New ideas trickle in slowly. Local values are deeply, deeply ingrained. Change is not welcome.
And that isolation, it really amplifies the conflicts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes the moral struggles feel even heavier.
Definitely. And we see it all through the eyes of Jean-Louis Finch, or Scout, our young narrator.
Right, Scout. And her brother Jem Yarmy.
And their father, Atticus Finch, widowed, respected lawyer, really the moral center of the town, arguably.
Can't forget Calpurnia.
No, definitely not. The family's black housekeeper. She's so important, giving Scout this vital window into the black community. And then, of course, lurking in the background, Arthur Boo Radley.
Ah, Boo. The neighborhood mystery man. Everyone whispers about him.
Exactly, shrouded in rumors. And then the central figures of the main conflict, Tom Robinson, the black man accused of rape.
Falsely accused.
Falsely accused, yes. And his accusers, Mayla Ewell and her father, Bob Ewell.
So the early part of the book, it's a lot about the kids, right? Scout, Jem, and Dill in the summer, their fascination with Boo Radley.
Yeah, they're obsessed, trying to make him come out. But even then, you see Boo's quiet presence. He leaves little gifts for them in the knothole of a tree.
Small acts of kindness. Hidden kindness. It's a really beautiful, sort of tender mystery that hints at something deeper.
It perfectly sets up the novel's larger themes about judging appearances and hidden humanity. But things really heat up when Atticus is appointed to defend Tom Robinson.
Right, defending a black man accused of raping a white woman in that time and place. That was never going to be simple.
Not at all. It immediately throws Atticus and his kids into the fire. Prejudice hits them head on. Jem and Scout get taunted at school. Atticus gets called vile names like nigger lover.
A harsh awakening for the children, seeing the ugliness under the surface of their town.
And it reveals Atticus's quiet courage. That scene with the lynch mob outside the jail.
Oh, yeah. Powerful. Atticus just standing there, alone.
Until the kids show up. And Scout, in her complete innocence, recognizes one of the men, Mr. Cunningham, and just starts talking to him about his son.
And it just diffuses the whole situation. Childhood innocence, disarming adult hate. Incredible moment.
It really is. Then comes the trial itself. The kids sneak in, watch from the balcony with the black community.
And Atticus delivers this masterclass defense. He systematically takes apart the Ewell story.
He really does. He shows Mayella was the one who made advances towards Tom, that her father likely beat her when he found out. He exposes their lies, their prejudice. His closing argument, it's just devastatingly clear.
He directly confronts their racism, doesn't he? He says something like,
yeah, he challenges the jury's core beliefs. He says, you gentlemen would go along with them on the assumption, the evil assumption, that all Negroes lie, that all Negroes are basically immoral beings, that all Negro men are not to be trusted around our women, black or white. He lays it bare.
Powerful. But it's not enough.
No. Despite overwhelming evidence of Tom's innocence, the all-white jury convicts him. It's just heartbreaking. A verdict decided by prejudice, not facts.
And the consequences are fatal. Tom tries to escape prison later.
And he's shot. Killed. It's presented almost as inevitable, a tragic result of the system he was trapped in. Pure injustice.
But the story isn't quite over even then. Bob Ewell feels humiliated by Atticus, by the trial.
Right. His shred of dignity, however undeserved, was challenged, so he seeks revenge. He attacks Jem and Scout on their way home from Halloween pageant.
Terrifying scene. Pitch black. Jem gets his arm broken.
But someone saves them. An unknown figure fights off Ewell, and Scout realizes it's Boo Radley.
Boo, the recluse, coming out of the shadows to save them.
Exactly. And then the sheriff, Hectate. He has to decide what to do. He knows Boo killed Ewell in self-defense, protecting the children.
But putting Boo through a trial, dragging it into the limelight, that would destroy him.
Precisely. So Tate makes a decision. He reports that Bob Ewell fell on his own knife. A necessary lie, perhaps, to protect Boo.
To protect another Mockingbird.
You got it. And the novel ends so beautifully, with Scout walking Boo home, finally seeing him as a person, not a ghost. She stands on his porch, looks out at the neighborhood from his perspective.
And finally understands Atticus's lesson about climbing into someone's skin.
That empathy clicks into place. It's a profound moment of growth for her. A master class in character arc.
Okay, so we've walked through the story. But what about the deeper meanings? The big themes Lee wanted us to wrestle with. Racial injustice is obviously huge.
Oh, it's the core. A searing indictment of that deep-seated prejudice in the American South. Tom Robinson's fate. It just symbolizes the devastating, fatal consequences of being black in that society. Innocence be damned.
It forces you to confront how prejudice denied basic human rights, even long after slavery ended. Segregation, social codes.
Exactly. But Lee's critique, it goes beyond race, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels broader, like prejudice is against anyone who's different, who doesn't fit the mold.
Precisely. Think about Boo Radley. He's a social outcast, victimized by fear and rumor, completely isolated by the town's judgment, even though he's ultimately kind and harmless.
And Dolphus Raymond, the white man who prefers the company of black people.
Another great example, he's ostracized. He pretends to be an alcoholic, sipping Coca-Cola from a paper bag just to give the white folks an excuse they can understand for his choices.
Wow. So he performs drunkenness to avoid judgment.
Yeah, it's easier for them to accept he's just a drunk than he genuinely chooses to live differently. Even Mayella Ewell, you could argue, is an outcast in her own way.
How so?
Well, she's white, but dirt poor, caught between worlds, rejected by respectable white society and unable to cross the racial divide. Lee shows how class and gender intersect with race to create these layers of isolation. She's painting a complex picture of who society marginalizes.
It's definitely not just black and white, literally.
Yeah.
Okay, to really get the power of these themes, we need to talk about the historical context, right? When it was written and set.
Absolutely critical. It's set during the Great Depression, the 1930s. Economic hardship was rampant.
And that probably fueled racial tensions.
For sure. White unemployment was high, and there was resentment, competition for jobs traditionally held by black people.
Yeah.
That economic anxiety definitely fanned the flames of prejudice.
And then it was published in 1960, right in the thick of the civil rights movement.
Exactly. Talk about timing. The book landed when the fight against segregation and racial injustice was headline news. Events happening around the time Lee was writing, or shortly before publication, they resonate powerfully with the novel's themes.
Like what specific events?
Well, think about Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. The Supreme Court ruling against school segregation. That was huge.
Right, and Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott in 55.
Exactly. People actively resisting the kind of ingrained prejudice depicted in Maycomb. These weren't just abstract ideas. People were putting their lives on the line.
And the murder of Emmett Till.
Yes, 1955. A black teenager brutally murdered in Mississippi for allegedly whistling at a white woman. His death galvanized the movement. Many see parallels between Emmett Till and Tom Robinson. The false accusation, the horrific injustice.
It makes this story feel so immediate, so relevant to the time it came out.
Definitely. And even things like the riots at the University of Alabama in '56 when Authryn Lucy, a black student, tried to enroll. All these real-world events showed the cracks, as you might say, forming in that rigid system of prejudice. The book tapped right into those anxieties and hopes.
Beyond the big historical currents, the book is also so much about individual character, courage, compassion. Atticus Finch looms large here.
He really does. He's presented as this pillar of integrity. He teaches the kids that real courage isn't, a man with a gun. It's what's the line?
When you know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway and you see it through no matter what.
That's the one. Such a profound definition of moral courage.
And his reason for defending Tom isn't about winning. It's about his own conscience.
Exactly. He says, I have to live with myself before I can live with others. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience. It's about personal integrity, standing up for what's right, even when it's unpopular or doomed.
And he drills that idea of empathy into Scout, that famous advice.
Oh yeah, the cornerstone. Never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. Radical empathy. That's the core lesson, maybe.
And that empathy seems connected to how the book treats class, too. It's not just rich versus poor.
No, it's much more nuanced. Lee shows different strata within both white and black communities. You have poor whites like the Cunninghams, who have a certain dignity, contrasted with the Ewells, who are seen as white trash.
And Atticus respects people based on character, not status, like how he values Calpurnia's judgment, even over his own sister, Alexandra, sometimes.
Right. That shows his disregard for the rigid social hierarchy. He sees the individual. The book really challenges any simplistic view of class and shows how it intersects with race and gender to reinforce prejudice.
Which brings us neatly to gender roles. Scout's perspective is key here, right? A girl growing up largely without a traditional mother figure.
Yeah, she's a tomboy, constantly pushing against expectations of what little girls should be and do in that society. She's observant, questioning.
And she has these strong female influences like Calpurnia and Miss Maudie, independent women.
Definitely. They offer different models of womanhood compared to, say, the gossipy, prejudiced women in the missionary circle, or even in Alexandra initially. Scout's navigating all these different expectations.
The book also seems to talk a lot about unwritten laws. the social rules that are maybe even stronger than the actual laws.
Absolutely. Think about Dolphus Raymond again, or Boo Radley. They haven't broken any official laws, but they face severe social punishment, isolation just for being different.
Their crimes are against social norms, not legal statutes.
Exactly. And Scout herself constantly bumps up against these unwritten rules about how girls should behave, what's proper, what isn't. Her narration constantly highlights the absurdity or injustice of these codes.
Okay, we can't talk about this book without talking about the title, The Mockingbird. What does it symbolize?
It's central, isn't it? It represents innocence, harmlessness, something that does good or at least does no harm and should be protected.
Atticus tells the boys explicitly.
Right. You can shoot all the blue jays you want if you can hit them, but remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird.
And Miss Maudie explains why, right?
Yeah, she clarifies it for Scout. Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens, don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. To harm them is pointless cruelty, a sin.
So who are the mockingbirds in the story? Tom Robinson seems obvious.
He's the primary one, absolutely. An innocent man destroyed by hatred and prejudice. His only crime was being black and showing kindness to a white woman who accused him.
And Boo Radley.
Definitely another key mockingbird. A gentle, kind soul who's been damaged and isolated by the community's fear and gossip. Protecting him at the end, like Hecate does, is akin to protecting a mockingbird. The sin is harming the harmless.
It's such a powerful, enduring symbol, and the book's impact, well, it's undeniable.
Oh, huge. Pulitzer Prize in 1961. The movie in 62 was massive, won Oscars. Gregory Peck as Atticus is just iconic.
Didn't UK librarians vote it the #1 book adults should read before they die, ahead of the Bible?
Yeah, in 2006, that's quite something. It sold over 40 million copies, still required reading in so many schools. It has truly lasted.
And that core message about empathy, about getting into someone's skin and walking around in it,
Yeah.
it still feels incredibly relevant.
More relevant than ever, perhaps. The struggle for justice, the fight against prejudice in all its forms, that's clearly ongoing.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. Consider a real-world case like that of Ronnie Long.
Ah, yes. A black man in North Carolina, released in 2020.
After serving 44 years in prison for a rape he didn't commit. Convicted back in 1976 by an all-white jury.
And later it came out that the police had intentionally hidden evidence that would have cleared him. Just like in Maycomb, almost.
Exactly. It's a stark, modern reminder that the kind of systemic prejudice and injustice Lee wrote about in the 1930s and published about in 1960 can still have devastating, real-world consequences today. It really urges us to stay vigilant, doesn't it? Against bias, both societal and our own.
It really does. It shows that the lessons of To Kill a Mockingbird aren't just historical artifacts. They are living, breathing challenges for us right now. A timeless call for empathy, for courage, for justice.
So we'll see you in the next episode with another interesting English original novel. Thank you.